Well, glad to see so many nice faces here again this week.
Is this your chair?
Before I introduce our speaker, I have a hot tip. Tomorrow at Weston Manor, starting at 4 o'clock, we're having a sip and shop in the gift shop, and everything in the shop is 50% off. And then we'll have some special deals outside, so ladies, get to bring your person, and we'll have snacks and wine. It'll be really fun. So if you've not been to one before, you should come because we do have a lot of fun out there. So tomorrow 4 to 7, please come to Weston Manor. Okay, our speaker today is a big treat. Tevya worked for the city of Hopewell for many years and then moved on to another location. She's going to be, this is going to be so interesting. This has been a topic that I have been fascinated with for a very long time, so I hope you enjoy it as much as I know I'm going to. Tevya Williams Griffin, born and raised on Eastern Shore, Virginia, in Northampton County. She's a certified urban planner by profession. She's the director of planning and codes compliant for the city of Williamsburg. She's the founder and president of the Cape Charles-Rosewald School Restoration Initiative, Inc. So, you're in for a treat. Enjoy, Tevya.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be back in Hopewell. And you may say, well, when have you ever been here? I was here for 18 years of my life. I was working in the planning department, and I'm so happy to see all of you again. I've had lunch several times here, and good to see some smiling faces of those who I've known for quite some time. Again, as she said, my name is Tevya Griffin, and I have the pleasure of being the president of the Cape Charles-Rosewald School Restoration Initiative. And you may say, well, what in the world is that? I had no idea what Cape Charles Elementary was either. I was, as she said, born and raised on the Eastern Shore, very, very proudly in Northampton, Virginia. How many of you have been on the beautiful Eastern Shore before? Yes. Okay, so you know exactly where it is. I am born and raised in Fairview, Virginia. I was actually born in my grandmother's bedroom. The house is still standing. My great-grandfather built the house, and it's maybe 2.5 miles from Cape Charles. So one day, when my grandmother and I were en route to what we call downtown Cape Charles, we wanted to get some ice cream from the drugstore. And we went down Old Cape Charles Road, and I noticed this school. The interesting thing is, again, been there all my life, but I did not see this school until I was actually in undergraduate school. I didn't notice it, but it was a brick school on Old Cape Charles Road, and she told me that this school used to be for black children that lived in Cape Charles. And that fascinated me. And I said, well, why is it just sitting here with nothing being done to it? It was pretty much abandoned and had been abandoned for over 40 years. And it used to be an eel packing plant after the school closed. And that's when she said, well, it used to be the school for blacks. And that's when my husband and I started on the journey of looking at how we can tell the history of the people and the community around Cape Charles Elementary. So we'll start with this picture. This is a picture of Booker T. Washington. Booker T. Washington was actually born in Virginia. Does anyone know what county Booker T. Washington was born in? Did everyone know that he was born in Virginia? It starts with the F. Franklin. So he's born in Franklin, which is right down 460. He was born a slave. He, his mother, and his brother and his sister were born a slave. And after emancipation, they then went to West Virginia. And he was in West Virginia for several years. He was a slave for 9 years. And he was freed during the emancipation and then went on to West Virginia. He always thought that there was something more, of course, than just slavery, but he was not allowed to learn. And he started learning when he went to West Virginia. And at that time, he learned from a Caucasian lady who was teaching him how to read and how to write, and he became fascinated with learning. And so much that he decided that he wanted a higher education, and he walked to Hampton University. And we call it Hampton University, but then it was Hampton Learning Institute. In Hampton, Virginia, from West Virginia, he walked, he walked, because that was, excuse me, education was that important to him. After that time, and graduating from Hampton, actually when he went to Hampton, he did not have a place there. He didn't apply. He showed up at the door and said, I want to learn, and they said, well, you'll have to earn your keep. And so he was a janitor before he was actually able to be a student at Hampton, and then he eventually became a student at Hampton. He graduated, went back to West Virginia, and taught for 2 years. He taught African American children, and he taught adults. And after that time, he then went on to Alabama, and he is the founder of Tuskegee Institute. And it wasn't called Tuskegee Institute then, it was called Tuskegee Learning Center, I believe. And that's in Alabama, and he was the president and founder of that. And so education has always been important to him. And I don't have my glasses on, so I'm gonna move up a little bit more. In his autobiography, Up From Slavery, Washington wrote, I had the feeling that to get into a schoolhouse and study in this way would be about the same as getting into paradise. So he felt that education was the same as going to heaven, pretty much. So this here are pictures of Booker T. Washington and someone who became his friend, and this is Julius Rosenwald. Julius Rosenwald was, his family migrated from Germany. He was Jewish, and they moved to Chicago. And he was the owner of Sears and Roebuck. He was the president and CEO of Sears and Roebuck Company. I remember when I was little getting the Sears, I'm telling you how old I am now. I remember getting the Sears catalog, and I didn't want to play outside, but I would go outside under the tree and have girlfriends over, they were really my cousins, and we would go through the Sears catalog to figure out what we wanted for Christmas. And I would then provide that to my grandmother and my mom. So this is Mr. Sears himself. And Booker T. Washington came to him. These pictures, the one that they are actually walking, was taken in 1915. And they began to talk. And Booker T. Washington went to him and said, you know, there's no public education for African Americans after Reconstruction. And this is very important to me, and they're especially in the rural South. We need to do something about this. And could you help me? Could you provide seed money for us to be able to build schools for African American children in the rural South? And Julius Rosenwald said yes, he would. Now, this may not seem like now a big deal, but back then, a Jewish man and an African American coming together was something that you just didn't do. And they said, you know what? It doesn't matter. We're going to come together and we're going to do this. This wasn't the only program that Julius Rosenwald brought people together or gave money to. He gave money to several other programs. So then began this marriage of Julius Rosenwald and Booker T. Washington. So altogether, 5,357 Rosenwald, and what we're now calling them is Washington-Rosewald, to give Washington some credit because he came up with that name. And so the national, on the national front, we're now changing it to Washington-Rosewald schools. Altogether, 5,357 schools were built. And this is a map showing you where those schools are. Over 883 counties and 15 states. In Virginia, there were 382 of these schools built. Unfortunately, only 126 of these schools remain. And I won't go into the details, but in the beginning of this program, the schools were built out of wood. And as the program continued on, they began to be built out of brick. So if you can imagine, the ones that are mostly still standing are the brick structures. And if people got to it at a good time and understood the importance of the school and they were able to be saved, then we do have some wood structures that are still left. So in Virginia, 256 of these schools are now gone, and 126 are remaining. And this graph here lets you know what's being done with those schools now. And actually in Virginia, there is a whole movement of people coming together that are restoring Rosewald schools and getting together and kind of understanding what it takes to do that, understanding the history, bringing the alumni back, and bringing some of the faculty who are still with us to come together to talk about their experiences at the school. So, Washington died in 1915. If you remember that picture I showed you, I told you that was 1915. He died shortly after that. And it was important for Julius Rosewald to continue with this effort. The one thing I didn't mention is that the schools were built and designed by Tuskegee architects. So African American architects at Tuskegee designed the schools. And later, when Booker T. Washington passed away, Julius Rosewald didn't abandon this idea. He kept this idea moving, but some of the architectural plans changed, and he began to use his architects for those plans. So we do see a shift in some of the design features of the schools. This is Booker T. Washington's wife, and she began then to carry the mantle when her husband passed away. And this is just a picture of her and Julius Rosewald together as Booker T. Washington has passed away, and she has kept the mantle going with the building of the schools. So we were super excited in Cape Charles to find that Booker T. Washington came on the Eastern Shore. And this is a clip of the paper, and it used to be, instead of people like chatting on Snapchat and Twitter and, you know, text messages or Facebook, you would actually put what was going on in your town. I mean, I thought it was too much business being put in the newspapers. However, this is what was done back then. And so this reads, I'm going to go up here. Dr. Booker T. Washington, principal of Tuskegee Institute, will tour the Eastern Shore and speak to the following places, beginning May 6, 1913. So he was on the shore in 1913. One thing that I thought was cool about this that you may not know, but he went to African Baptist Church. That's cool because my mom and dad were married at African Baptist Church. That church is still there in Sheridan. My primary school, my elementary school was in Sheridan. So it was really cool for us to see this, that he was there and he was talking to them about education of African Americans. So here is the Cape Charles Elementary School. Our school was built in 1929 and it closed in 1966. We believe our school is special, and I think everyone believes their school is special, but our school is a 4-teacher classroom with an auditorium. It is a brick school. In 1966, when the school closed, shortly after, it was purchased by a gentleman who packed eel, E-E-L, and shipped them to France. And there are whole articles on Mr. Robert, who was in this business. He also did some business on the Northern Neck, but he also used this as an eel packing plant of all things. And so when I went by it, it was still boarded up with his name on the outside that talked about eel packing. So here on the sides you see this was an office. When the school first opened, there were no restrooms in the school. So you would use the bathroom in the outside on the back. And every Rosewald school had 2 acres. So Rosewald school sat on 2 acres. This was a classroom, 2 classrooms here, 2 classrooms here, and then an auditorium. One thing that we did as the initiative is that it was important to us to learn the history of the students And so what they would tell us is that they would come to class, the principal would ring the bell, they would have devotions, they would have prayer and Bible time, and then they would start their day. The classes here were grades 1 through 7. And now we're like grades 1 through 7, 5,000 square feet is not enough space. But all of the students, all of the alumni that we have spoken with has said the teachers were very much disciplinarians. The students followed directly their orders. And so you could have a 5th grade class and a 4th grade class in the same room and you wouldn't know it. It was very orderly. The parents were very involved, and so if something went wrong at school, they knew it before the kids got home, and it was taken care of. So that was one thing that always came out during the oral history, is that very disciplined, a loving place to be, and they really enjoyed their time. Now, interesting enough, of course, this was during segregation. And one thing that the town did at the time, this school was placed beside the town dump. And so when you talk to some of the students, they don't mention that. And then when you talk to others, they're still to this day, very angry about that. They hate it, and of course I think it's awful that they would have to smell the dump as they're outside and see people dumping these things, trash, in their backyard pretty much. So I don't want to hop over, but I have more to tell you about that. We were able to get our national and state historic designation. So this is on the National and State Register of Historic Places. And in doing that, our consultant found the original building plans for our school. So you can't see it here, and I apologize, but this is pretty much done in 1928. It has the architect there, School for Cape Charles, Northampton County, and these are the original plans. She found those at the Library of Virginia. And you can see the front door there, back door. So, in talking to the alumni, we began to ask them, do you have any pictures? Do you have any artifacts of your time at the school? And they did. And so this is not a picture of someplace else. This is a picture of students in front of the school. Now, what we don't know is the year that this picture was taken. But what has been really cool is having the alumni notice either themselves or brothers or sisters in these pictures. And this, again, is in front of the school, different students at a different time taken here. This is a postcard that was done some time ago, and I hope this doesn't move anymore. Let's see how far this moves. Okay, perfect. So I wanted to show you this because if you've been to Cape Charles, you recognize this hump. Is anybody that's been there, do you recognize this hump? Okay, cool, one person. So the school was called the School Over the Hump. And this is the hump. And the reason why it was called that is because in Cape Charles during the time it was very, very segregated. So there were certain streets that African Americans lived on, and certain streets that African Americans had their own commerce. So grocery store, drugstore, church, movie theater, houses were all on the back streets of Cape Charles. And so the African American students actually passed the white or Caucasian school to get to their school. So they had to walk over the hump to get to their school, hence the name Over the Hump. And so of course I had to give homage to the beautiful Eastern Shore. And just to show you the location, so I was born here, Cape Charles is here, and I wanted to show you this. Washington and Jefferson are the streets that African Americans lived on. And this area here is the Central Park, and is also where the school, the white school was. And so they passed that school and they walked from here down to here to this school. And so the question that we asked them is, okay, well, what did you do when it rained? And if it rained, they would sometimes take a taxi, or they had some parents who would get together to have them go to the school, and they would go that way. But again, the majority of them that tell the stories are very joyful, because you can imagine the stories and the shenanigans that went on walking to school, and just the different stories that they had were just wonderful. And I have a book here if you want to look at it. Virginia Humanities provided us a grant, so we were able to tell those stories, and we have a booklet that outlines their stories. So these are some more pictures that we were able to gather from alumni. Here are principals and administrators, and they know who the gentlemen are, but no one has been able to tell us who these two women are in the pictures. Here again, this man right here is Mr. Nottingham. He is still alive and kicking and doing so much. He was a teacher that went to Hampton University. So during that time, if you were going to be a teacher and you're African American, you had to go to a historically black college in order to get your education. You didn't go to what would be considered a Caucasian college. You had to go to a HBCU. And Hampton at the time was known for their academics and teaching. And so most of the teachers that came to Cape Charles Elementary were taught at Hampton University. And one of them is Mr. Nottingham. Here there is a student, and the lady here getting her diploma, she's getting her diploma from 7th grade. This is Miss Diane Davis. Miss Davis was my shorthand teacher in college, and she's also on the board now of the Cape Charles Elementary School Restoration Initiative. So this is a picture that was taken, like I said, in Cape Charles during that time. If you were African American, you lived on Jefferson or Washington, and this was the movie theater for African Americans that was on Jefferson Street. Here's a birthday party for one of the kids at the school. And one of the things that in talking to the alumni, we asked, what was something that you remember about Rosewald schools? And honestly, they don't like us calling them Rosewald schools. They say, it's Cape Charles Elementary. Who's Rosewald? They had no idea who this person was. And that's because that was their parents' business, right? The parents are the ones who actually went to town council and got this school built. And I do want to tell you about that. First, this is May Day. Anybody familiar with the May Day pole celebrations? Yeah. Awesome. And so they had those celebrations, and I really don't understand all the exercise stuff, but it's okay. They did all the exercises, and then you had your king and your queen. And this lady here, her name is Miss Patricia Beach. And I'm going to show you Miss Patricia Beach now. She's wonderful. And this is Miss Patricia, and then over there, she was the queen at this May Day celebration. And the middle person here is Miss Patricia Beach today. And her and her husband, Tyrone Beach, live now back in Cape Charles. And she saw herself in those pictures. She hadn't seen those pictures for years. And she came to an event that we had, and she says, that's me. I was the queen, so now we call her queen. But this was her, and these two ladies beside her are also alumni that went to Cape Charles Elementary. So this would have been the scene that I saw when I came past the school with my grandmother. And I want to give you some history of let's see. Okay, I want to give you some history of the education of African Americans in the Cape Charles, Northampton area before the school was built. So blacks at the time didn't have a high school. They went to what they call Tidewater Institute, and that was built in 1903. And in 1907, that institute added industrial classes, academic, collegiate, and seminary classes were added in 1935. And this was done by support by the Northampton Accomack Baptist Association. In 1921, African Americans in Cape Charles began to go to town council and ask, okay, when can our students have a public education? And they started to raise money in 1921. And in July of 1921, they put together what you call the Colored School League. And they went to town council formally requesting a school be built in Cape Charles for African American students. In 1925, there was a property that was available, and it was available on 13. If you're familiar with Eastern Shore, it's one way in, one way out. That's Route 13. And so there was a property on 13 at the corner of 13 and the road that I don't even know what the road is, that you turn down to get into Cape Charles. And people came out and they did not want an African American school at the front of Cape Charles. They did not want that face of Cape Charles. And so they said in the town minutes, no Negro school at gateway of the town. That did not deter them. They continued to ask. And finally, in 1928, a property was up for sale. It was up for sale for $600 near the town dump, and it was purchased by the town to build this school. This school was built with the funding of Julius Rosenwald, of course, but also over $1,000 was provided by the African American community. And that was a big thing back then. And we actually had an historic marker placed here in 2011, and we're getting that changed. DHR, Department of Historic Resources, is allowing us to change that sign that gives more credit to the community that put that sign, put the school here. So I want to stop now because I'm going to go into a different part of where we are today with the school, but wanted to see if anyone had any questions about Julius Rosenwald, Booker T. Washington, Rosenwald Schools, the school on the Eastern Shore. Yes, ma'am.
Could you clarify the funding for the schools? As I understand in my research of it, that Rosenwald put in some money, but each local community had to put their share in.
Yes, that's true. And I can't tell you the percentage of that, but Ms. Pawlowski is correct. It was very important for Booker T. Washington that Julius Rosenwald just didn't give money out and pay for these schools. His thing was the African American community also has to give to this, and so you couldn't just get a school because the money was there from Julius Rosenwald. You had to match. There had to be a match that was provided. And so that was a big deal because it showed the heart of the community for the school. The town did give money, but the town did not give as much money as Rosenwald or the African Americans at that time. And this was funded by the town and Northampton County. Does that clarify?
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Yes. Those are really good questions. I'm not sure of his education, and I can't tell you the exact name of the charities. I do have a book here that gives us all that information, and I can look it up for you and give you the answer after. But the charities that he gave to were charities that were for, during that time, what we would consider disadvantaged during that time, or those who were not mainstream during that time. And they're slipping me because if I said who they were, you would know the names. So I can look that up for you and provide that to you. There was another question back here. Yes?
So at this time, there was no state involvement in the school?
At this time, there was no state involvement with this particular school. That's correct. And I don't believe prior to this, there was no public education for African Americans. And I have the date when that started to happen. So early 1800s prohibited educating slaves, of course. And thank you for that. I'm sorry. Let's see. I have my handy dandy notes. So in 1893, blacks were educated on, at least in Cape Charles, and in a 2-room brick schoolhouse. And then in 1910, the town hall was used. And then 1912, the Cape Charles High School was built. But it was not built for African Americans. And from what I can tell from my research, the state was not involved during this time. Yes, question right there.
In your database, do you have the addresses and the cities where each of the schools were constructed? Okay, I'll talk with you later. Thank you.
Yes, so I don't have the database, but Fisk, F-I-S-K University has a database where they are collecting all of the addresses of Washington-Rosewald schools throughout the South. And then Preservation Virginia is working on a database, and if you go online, you can see all of the schools that have registered in this database in Virginia. But Fisk University has it for United States, South, and then Preservation Virginia has it for particularly Virginia schools. I saw a question. Yes?
Did you say how Mr. Rosenwald made his money?
He made his money, I think from Sears.
Oh, that's
So he was the president and CEO of Sears and Roebuck. Yes. You're welcome. Yes.
the actual building of the building. Did the African community help with the actual building?
So good question. Her question was, did African Americans help build this building? From my research, that's not indicated that they did. We do know that the bricks from this building were actually given by the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church actually that's related to Baltimore. Diocese helped with the bricks that were provided here. But it doesn't show, actually I know no, African Americans did not, because we actually we got a message from a descendant of the architect and the builder of this school, and they were Caucasian. So they could, somewhere down the line, have an African American, but no, I didn't see that. There was another question, yes.
Hopewell have any of these schools?
You know what? I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah, in World War II, there was a school up the Courthouse Road back in there.
Uh-huh.
Actually burned to the ground. And so I was just curious if that school had anything to do with it.
Yeah, so in the database that I've seen, I've never seen Hopewell as a name. I know that Chesterfield did, Henrico did, so it's very likely that Hopewell did, but we would have to.
It's probably Prince George.
Oh, you're right.
Technically,
Yeah, you're right. I still have not seen that, but it's very likely. Yes, sir.
That school was not originally brick, was it? Because didn't not the first pictures did look brick.
Yes, they're brick.
Okay.
He was asking if the school was originally brick. So this is the architectural rendering, and we're talking about this picture, the older black and whites. Yeah, I think these aren't original pictures. These were taken from someone who had them. So I think it's faded over time, but it was original brick. And I didn't tell you this, but these were, while the school was being constructed in 1928 and 1929, these are the pictures.
The picture just before this one.
Oh,
Whoops. No.
oh, yes.
That looks like it's board.
That is board. So this is the kind of architectural book that the Tuskegee Mid architects drew. So this is an example of the type of school that you could have. So this is the type of school that we had. You could have a school that did not have an auditorium at all. That's what you were referring to. Yes, sir. So you're right. This is clapboard. Our school was brick, but you could have built the same design or configuration.
I was wondering if later it had been brick, but I see now.
No. Yes. Does that make sense to everyone, what I just said?
So
Okay.
it's whatever the community wanted.
I don't know if it's other community wanted or what they had money for. I think it was more money. Also, on the shore, maybe they wanted something that wouldn't have, you can say, elements of the sea, the sea air, so they chose brick. Any other questions? Yes. I don't know. I mean, I can easily look it up and let you know, but I'm not sure where this has been 14 years of my life, and I've been kind of honed in, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I have a picture of my now 14-year-old daughter in my mother's arms when we dedicated the actual historic marker. So I honestly, Susan, it could be, but I'm not sure. Yeah. Oh, has it? Now, even if it's been demolished, the Preservation Virginia page would still show it, and it'll show demolished beside it. So you may want to have a look if you think that you've come upon a Washington-Rosewald school and maybe not sure about it. Okay. So I just wanted to tell you where we are now with the rehabilitation of the school. So this actually is a picture. This is how the school looked, and it was taken in 2011. And some of you know Mark Wagner, who used to work at DHR. Mark Wagner was the person that came to speak right after me. He was waiting on the other side because he was there to dedicate the historic marker. This was really significant because before this time, if you went past the school and if someone didn't tell you, you had no idea that this used to be a school, because for so long it was known, for at least for me, as an abandoned property, and then before then, an eel packing plant. And those are the signs there where you see, if you can see it, says Robert eel packing. So there's a historic marker. This is 2011. And this was a gathering of people. We had the historic marker reveal. We then went to First Baptist Church and we had a reception and we had people singing, and it was wonderful. We even had some alumni, and at that time some faculty who are no longer with us come and talk about their experiences at the school. So this is how the school looks now, and it even looks better than this now because we are moving into the school and it'll be finished by the end of September. So we are super excited, and we purchased the school in 2019, and I'll tell you that story. So the person that owned the school was the daughter of Mr. Robert, and I called her. And I said, hey, we are interested in the school. And at this point, she had the school on the market for $999,999. That's how much she wanted for this school. And it assessed for $180,000. Yeah, so my conversation with her is, well, do you know the assessed value? And she said, of course, it was wrong. And really what the gist was, there was a technological plant behind the school, a tech plant behind the school. And there was some right-of-way that the tech plant needed. And guess where the right-of-way was? It was right beside the school. So she was trying to hold out thinking that she can get some money from these tech people to be able to get, sell out on the school. And she had several offers. She had an offer for around $300,000. She had an offer for around $400,000, and she said no each time. Then the price of the school went down to $799, and still no one didn't move. And that's at the time that we did our oral history project that I told you about, because clearly we weren't going to pay that much money for this school. Even though it was worth it, it wasn't worth it, right? So what we did is we held off, and in 2018, I get a Facebook message through Messenger that says, are you still interested in purchasing the school? And first I was like, well, duh, yes, but I didn't know who it was. It wasn't her, it was her niece. And she said, well, give me an offer. And I said, well, I'm not going to give you an offer over Facebook. I'll have our realtor call you. We did not have a realtor. So I found a realtor. So we had to find a realtor. And it was actually the husband of one of our board members, and we purchased the school in February of 2019 for $275,000. And we were ecstatic, of course, because, like I said, she got offers more than that, and she didn't take it. And I think there was some issue in the family, and there were some circumstances in which they sold it to us for that much. But we have now put about $2.5 million into, yeah, that's a lot, I know, into the rehab of the school. And we've done that because of our mission. And the mission of the Cape Charles Rosewald School Restoration Initiative is to unify and energize Virginia Eastern Shore through community partnerships and opportunities for fellowship, lifelong learning, and economic empowerment for all. So we do that, and we purchased it for this reason. Our vision is that this school that was once used to segregate people will become a place that brings people together. That's the vision. And so it will be a place where a vibrant Eastern Shore community gathers to learn, play, and to prosper. And prosper is really important because Northampton County is one of the poorest counties in Virginia. So that's really important that everyone prospers. It's also important because if you go to Cape Charles, and if you're from Cape Charles, you'll see that several people who used to live there don't live there anymore. And they don't live there because they can't afford to live there. And so, but we want everyone to feel like they are welcomed at our particular property. So we're going to build relationships, build bridge, have meaningful conversation. These are our values. And this is before we actually started the restoration, and we're trying to raise money, and we had what we called Umoja Day, and Umoja means unity. And we had all of the community come out, and we told them, come out, because we're going to take pictures. We're going to have this big, huge picture. So as you can see, in the front are all alumni, and behind there are all friends of the Cape Charles Rosewald School. Just to give you a little picture of what this will be. So this space over here is 1,400 square feet of flexible space. We have a 120-seat auditorium. On this side is a licensed kitchen, commercial kitchen. What we learned is that there's several entrepreneurs on the shore who don't have the capital money to be able to have a brick and mortar restaurant. There is one lady who comes all the way to Hatch, which is in Richmond, a commercial kitchen in Richmond. And there's one lady who travels all the way to Farmville to do her manufacturing. One is a fig manufacturing, and the other one is Barrier Island salts. And so we're now talking to them, and we're working on a contract with them that instead of them traveling 2-3 hours away to manufacture, they'll be able to rent our space and manufacture their products there. So we'll have store exhibits and education. And I don't want to last long here, but the cool thing is if you've been on the shore past Northampton, going into Accomack, as you go into Maryland, you'll see the Eastern Shore Community College. We call it up the road, down the road. So the community college is up the road from Northampton. It's about 45 miles up the road. And if you want to have, further your education, you have to travel that far if you can afford it. And so the Eastern Shore Community College will have classes at Cape Charles Elementary, which is awesome. The classes they will have will be unmanned aerial systems, dental assisting, hospitality, English as a second language, core construction fundamentals. These are the classes that when we did a survey, that people said they wanted. And so professors will actually come down to the school instead of people having to travel to them and have the classes here. Some of the people that have helped us along the way, the Cape Charles Historical Society, Preservation Virginia, Department of Historic Resources, Barrier Island Center, Shore History have been wonderful partners. And just in case, I know this is sponsored by the Historic Hopewell Foundation, so I wanted to show you all what grants can do and how important grants were. So when I said we had $2.5 million, most of that money was from grants. We've had awesome donors. We were able to buy that property through donors with no, we don't have any debt on the property, which is wonderful. Yes. So this is, we got, I don't know if you guys have heard of the IRF grant. We got that $1 million grant 2 years ago, and that really jump-started the program. We got a grant to be able to do the designation for the National Historic Registration, and that was done by Mary Ruffin-Hanbury. She's done some work here in the city. Virginia Humanities gave us $10,000 for our oral history project. The Woodson Center provided us with $250,000 grant. Eastern Shore Community Foundation, $50,000. That's how we got the new roof on the building. The National Trust, $150,000. That's how we got the windows. Those are the original windows. The windows were in the attic for the 45 years. They were in the attic. So those are the original windows, and we had them restored. And so those beautiful windows that you see out there are just beautiful, and they are original to the property. And then the African American Heritage Fund, how much money did we get from them? That's the same one. That's $150,000. And we were just awarded $600,000 through DHR for the Virginia 250th. So that, and I think you guys got some money from, did you guys get money for Virginia 250th? I think for Shiloh Lodge, you guys, when I say you guys, I mean Hopewell, got money from that also. So I won't go into this. I didn't know if Stephen was going to be here. Stephen has been a jewel. I think all of you probably have heard of Stephen Kalos. He used to, so yes, okay. So Stephen has been a jewel. I've called him and said, Stephen, I don't know what to do. We need some legal advice. And of course, Sayings is not cheap, but he was gracious enough to provide us some pro bono legal advice. So I wanted to give a shout out to him. So please tell him that I mentioned him today. He probably wouldn't want me to. We are super excited about a partnership we have with William and Mary. As Susan said first, when I first got up here, is that I work with the city of Williamsburg and was able to meet a professor who is very much interested in partnerships in the community. So Eastern Shore and Williamsburg are an hour and 15 minutes away, but they don't care. If you are doing something in the community and they can help you, they will provide graduate students, undergraduate students, and so we had 2 or 3 workshops where they came and sat down with our board and talked to us about board governance. They talked to us about, okay, this isn't right in your bylaws, you may want to change that. The information that I showed you before about our core values, they helped us with that. So just to let you know, if there's anyone in the audience that needs help with anything dealing with the nonprofit, please reach out to your universities because they are willing and able to help. And all of those services were free of charge to us. This will be the auditorium space. If you go on our website, it is ccrosenwaldschool.org. You will be able to actually look at, from the beginning, the demo all the way to where we are now. And it's wild because when we stepped into the school, remember, it was no longer a school, it was an ill packing plant. And what that looked like was there was no auditorium floor. They had sand in the auditorium floor. So when you stepped in, it was just sand. There were the refrigerators and the freezers, of course, not still working, but all in the building. There were things that we didn't even know what they were, that we had to get out and do that demo before we could even get in. But this will be the lovely auditorium that we have. The stage that you see is the original stage to the building. The original doors, the original wainscoting is still there that we are saving. Some of the wainscoting we could not save because it had lead-based paint, and so DHR did allow us to be able to make some changes there. So in getting the DHR grant, we of course have to follow the Secretary of Interior standards for rehab. And so that's what we've done. It's been hard, but that's what we've done. So everything down to the lighting that comes down from the ceiling had to be exactly what was there during the time when the school was open. This just tells you about the community kitchen. And this is the lady who is going to help us and actually pay to be able to rent the community kitchen space. And then it's an outdoor venue. So this is the site plan of the property. Oh, the other thing I didn't tell you. This project has been just divine from the beginning. God's hand has just been, in my opinion, all over this particular project. And I say that because the town came to us, and the town has been wonderful. And they had 6.2 acres that they were not using. And you say, okay, that's cool. Well, it's really cool because they gifted it to us. And so now, instead of having just 2 acres, we have 8 acres. So this is the entire property here. There's a pond in the back. And this pond is where, if you talk to the alumni, the boys used to get tadpoles and put them on the girls during recess. So we're going to rehab and restore this pond because you can, as you know, over time it's just sat there dormant over time, and so it will have walking trails in the back here and some interpretive signage. So we're happy about that, and we were fortunate to be able to get funding from Timmons Group. So some of you may be familiar with Timmons Group in Prince George County. They helped us and did all of the site plan work pro bono. Yes. Say it again.
Did the dump get removed?
No. Well, over time the dump was closed. Yes, but we did a Chesapeake clean the bay day, and we found garbage is still in the back. And so that's something that has been done over time, is us cleaning the back. So the dump would have been here. So it was removed, but not what was packed in under the ground. We were fortunate to be able to have a landscape architect come and provide us with renderings for landscaping for the property, and that Virginia 250th grant has the money there to be able to put in the landscaping. So again, we're opening in 2025, and we hope that the next time that you make your way over the bridge tunnel, that you will come and visit the school over the hump, the Washington-Rosewald school. And I will say, we have come up with a new name for the school, and so the name will be the Impact Center. It'll be the Impact Center, a Washington-Rosewald school. And we made that decision just because we want this to be an impactful place. It has been in the past, and it will continue to be. Some of the people who graduated from Washington-Rosewald schools, Maya Angelou was one of them, and you never hear about their early education. But people in that time frame look back, and most of them went to a Rosewald school if they were living in the rural South. If you have any more questions, I'm happy to answer it, and hopefully you learned something new today and it was interesting. I hope.